My name is Dawna Toews, and I am really excited to share this topic with you today on children and behavior. Welcome to the Empowered Life series. I have a degree in psychology and a certificate in family life studies. And what we are going to share with you today is something that I want to ask you first to have an open mind. I want to let you know that I am a mom of 3, and one used to be a very difficult child, and so I know what it's like to be the mom with guilt and with shame sometimes when your kid sort of goes and represents you at school. So we're gonna kind of dive into some things here today, and I want you to know one thing. Whatever is going on with your children right now, if it's not what you had hoped for your child, it's not your fault. And we're going to talk about some of the reasons why that is. So what is it like to have a child go back to school and be a child who is very aware of his surroundings, but yet can't seem to focus for too long and keep his or her attention for too long? Or what about a child who is constantly getting kicked out of class? And this was my little guy. Or worse, is being threatened under the age of 10 to even be kicked out of school altogether. Or what is it like to be a child who doesn't know what happens to him or her when feelings of emotions come up, when they feel frustrated, and a child seems to be completely sweet on one hand and endearing, and then the next minute they become this person that neither you or even themselves recognize? What about a child who seemingly seems to always be sad or anxious or scared or overly emotional about the smallest of things, even if there's a good reason for it, but you're noticing that some of the emotions are coming up? Well, there's no bad emotions, but there are better ways of helping our children deal with these emotions. And we're going to talk about some of these ways. May I also ask you, as parents watching this, as friends of people who have children, grandparents, that we keep an open mind in that this can also be for ourselves. This doesn't necessarily just pertain to children. So I want you to think about you as well when you're listening to this. So let's first talk a little bit about our current medical system and what they are doing for our children. So again, I'd like for you to hear me on this one before we move more deeply into this discussion. And it's this: it may not be your fault. And more times than not, it actually is not your fault. And yet we blame ourselves as parents. We see kids and their behavior and we think maybe it's because I'm anxious and that's why they're anxious. And maybe it's because I'm yelling at them and that's why they're acting like that. Maybe it's because I didn't do this or I didn't do that. Well, let me share with you some things that can actually contribute to some of the behaviors that you may see in your children, your grandchildren, or children you see in your classroom that may have absolutely nothing to do with you. So first, let's talk about energy levels. What do you think is going to happen when we are low in vitamin D? And most of us know this happens when we don't have enough sun. And so we have feelings of sadness over long periods of time without vitamin D. We have fatigue, foggy brain. So what if you have low levels of vitamin D? And in fact, if you live in northern US, if you live in Canada, or if you have children who go to school all day, stay in the shade in the evening, or are sitting at home, they may be deficient in vitamin D. And so that can cause some of the issues that you're seeing with low energy or feelings of sadness. And so we need these levels to rise up. And it's the same thing with all vitamins and all minerals. If we may not be deficient, but what if we're just a little bit low on that? We are not going to live to our optimal selves, and neither will our children. Sleep. Are they getting enough sleep? So we know that when we get enough sleep, we are living our optimal selves. And some of these kids can't sleep at night. They can't get to sleep because their minds are racing, or they're just feeling feelings of anxiety, and so they can't get enough. Well, what about food addiction? What about the foods that we're eating? Some of these kids are eating foods that are absolutely so hard to turn down. There was a study that was done given 2 subjects of rats. And in the first rat study, they were addicted to cocaine. And they were given the option of having sugar or cocaine. Do you know that every single rat chose sugar over cocaine? Sugar is one of the most addictive substances in our diet today. And yet we feed it to ourselves, we feed it to our children. And it's not your fault, because we've been duped to believe a lie that sugar is okay. Why would the government put it on our shelves if it's not good for our children? But in fact, we know that it's so addictive, and it absolutely does cause behavioral changes in our kids. And that's just one food addiction. Fructose intolerance. This is another one that can actually cause behavioral changes in our children. I know my son, was tested for fructose intolerance, and he cannot tolerate fructose. When you give my son a banana, his behavioral changes are so drastic that he turns from almost a Jekyll and Hyde. We see him go from the sweetest, kindest boy to somebody who is trying to push his sibling down the stairs or trying to bite him. And yet, if you know my son, you would understand that this is not who he is. Food can absolutely cause changes in him. Brain allergies, this is another one. We have the IgE response. This is a response that can cause immediate changes. So the hives or the anaphylactic shock, that's the immune system's first response. But there's another response from the immune system. It's IgG response. The IgG response is a part of the immune system's secondary response. And this can absolutely cause changes in our kids' behavior. Heavy metals, many of these kids have heavy metals from lead or mercury, and even a small dose of lead can actually cause changes in behavior. We can get lead from different places in our environment, including some of the pipes in our water supplies in different parts of North America, as well as in the walls. If we're renovating and we're taking some paint off the walls, they used to use lead in all of these paints. And so if you're disrupting that wall, lead is being taken out and emitted into the air and can cause behavioral changes. And glucose intolerance. Glucose intolerance is a really powerful way to test whether or not your children can have different changes in their behavior from that. So let me just tell you about a pilot study. It's called the South Cumbria Alternative Sentencing Option. And what this is a pilot project that was done on a juvenile institution. So we're talking about kids, teenagers, and even younger who are having criminal behavior, and sometimes they're having criminal behavior time and time again. And you can imagine what you think when you're maybe wondering about their parents. And this is a testament to, is it always your fault? They did this pilot project where they took away sugar and they took away processed foods, and they added more nutrition into this particular institution. And let me tell you about some of these shocking statistics that happened from this pilot project. 21% fewer serious antisocial acts. 25% reduction in assaults. 75% reduction in the use of restraints. And listen to this one, 100% elimination of suicides. Now, this was a pilot project. It was not a double-blind placebo study. So then guess what? There were multiple studies done afterwards conducting this pilot study in a way that was using double-blind, placebo-controlled methods. And guess what happened? Not only did they show a replica of the results from this pilot project, but using nutritional supplements to create an empirically sound, double-blind placebo study, they showed even higher positive effects in these kids. So let's talk about why this might be. Many of you are now aware of the connection between the gut and the brain. There is actually a relatively new branch of science called psychoneuroimmunology, a fascinating study between this gut and brain connection. The gut and brain are so connected, in fact, that the gut is commonly called the second brain. We now know, for example, that serotonin, this is the neurochemical focus in many antidepressants, is actually found in the brain, yes. But did you know that up to 80% of our serotonin is actually found in the gut? So does this connection affect our behavior? You bet it does. There have been numerous studies that show that what we put into our mouths time and time again, with the health of our gut, absolutely matters when it comes to behavior. So what can we do? There have been numerous studies that show that what we put into our mouths absolutely matters. And in fact, whatever you put into your mouth, whether it's good or bad, is actually going to contribute to giving your body what it needs to heal or harming your body. There's no neutral ground here. There's no in between. It's actually helping or harming. So what can we do? Well, the first thing that we can do is look at our plate and ask ourselves, is this contributing to the brain? And most of us don't look at our plate and think that way. Is this contributing to my child's brain? Many of you listening today were like me once. I didn't look at my plate and think about how this is helping my body heal itself in mind, body, and heart. But there's things now that we can do. We have been equipped with knowledge. Thank God for the internet. And as much as it can offer some information that's not always good, it's offering some really beautiful information for us. So let's talk about some other things that we can do for our kids that can help with their behavior. Exercise. This is really well studied. This is really well studied for its ability to help with elevating mood for our kids. Teaching our kids to meditate, breathing techniques are also extremely beneficial ways that we can help serve our children. We are just helping them be present. And I have taught my children this on many occasions when they feel like they can't control their own emotions. But I want to talk about one of the most powerful things that we have used in our home to date, and that is essential oils. It is one of the most powerful ways that we can help our children with these behaviors that we are seeing on a regular basis, whether you are a mom, a dad, a grandparent, or whether you are a teacher at school. One of the most powerful ways that I have been able to help my children is using doTERRA's essential oils. We use them now on a regular basis because they, by far, have helped me see the biggest effects in behavior on an everyday basis. The first two oils that I use when it comes to essential oils are called Serenity and Balance. These two oils are my go-to. I will use these two oils as my foundation. The first one is called Serenity. This is a blend of oils, and one of the highest oil in that, it would be lavender, and Balance is another blend, and we use these for calming and for grounding our children, which some of my kids definitely need some grounding. The next series of essential oils I use is actually in a kit called the Emotional Aromatherapy Kit. And this kit has 6 different oils, and I can use this any time of day that I need it. The different oils in this are peace, motivate, console, cheer, forgive, and passion. And my kids can use these on a regular basis anytime that they need any one of these. When it comes to energy, some of these kids are lacking a lot of energy. And so the oils that I use for that, definitely peppermint, wild orange. I just get them to inhale that. I'll put a drop in their hands and just get them to breathe that in their nose. And the way that I get them to breathe it in, with peppermint, you want to be a little careful because it's very powerful. But I'll just ask them to gently breathe that in their nose. Deep breath, and then let go. And then do it again. Let go, and then do it again one more time. Because what I want us to understand is that we need to use these oils not just once and then think that it's going to change everything. This is about consistency. This is about knowing how that we can use our oils. And so I love teaching that let's breathe this in 3 times, take deep breaths, and at the same time we're calming our children with breathing exercises. Wild orange is another one that I use. Now this one is interesting because this I stumbled upon. When my kids are feeling feelings of anxiety, or they're sad, or they are not feeling their optimal selves, I ask them to go to my kit and to pick the one that works for them. Because one child of mine will use Serenity for feelings of anxiety, and another child will actually use wild orange. So I think it's important that we listen to our kids and we let them be the ones who are empowered to use these oils the way that they feel that they need to in that moment. Now I want to share with you a little story that is my own. And long story short, my little guy who has taught me much about control because his gift to me was that I could not control him. You know, maybe you have one of those kids that you just think, I don't even know what to do with them, and they make you feel crazy inside. Well, that was my little guy. And recently, there has been a shift in him. He was getting kicked out of his classroom every single day. And my husband and I just found out about this January. Now, I know oils. I've been using them for years. But this is the power of consistency. My little guy was using a blend that I'm going to share with you in a second. And he was using them, but we weren't using it every day. We were using it once in a while here. Whenever we found that he was just maybe really elevated, we would use it. But as soon as we found this out from his teachers, we started using it 3 times a day. The blend is 4 different oils. It is In Tune, Vetiver, Serenity, and Balance. And we put all of this in one roller bottle to make it easy for us, and we put it on the back of his neck. And we did this before he went to school, when he got back from school, and right before he went to bed. Can I just tell you that within that same week, my son to this day has not been kicked out of his class since. We know the power of these oils. The other thing that we were doing for this little guy was helping all of the nutrients in his body be up to par. So what we did was we used the daily nutrient pack. And my little guys can swallow pills. If your kids can't swallow pills, then we also have the chewable vitamins and the omegas. Let me talk a little bit about omega-3s. If you are like any typical North American, your omega-3 to omega-6 ratio is probably a little or a lot imbalanced. Nutritional experts now say that the omega-3 to omega-6 should be 1-to-1 balanced. But in North America, most people are about 21-to-1. 21 omega-6 to 1 omega-3. So we need to lower our omega-6 and increase our omega-3. And so I give my kids omega-3s every single day, along with the nutrients that I can help them be empowered, help them be their optimal selves. Because we're not just looking at, does the body need food, but the body needs optimal nutrition. And I'm using that with this pack. And so I want to just give you a little bit of a day in the life of us. So when we wake up, we have that diffuser going all night long, and we'll put whatever, we have a diffuser in every child's room, and they get to pick their oil. We also use enzymes. We use enzymes to help digest the food so that we can help the gut. Anytime that you're eating food that is cooked, you need to take enzymes, because when you cook anything above 117 degrees, you actually kill every single enzyme known to that food. And we use the very enzymes of the food that we eat to digest it. And so if you're cooking it, we may need a little bit of help with that. So we're using things like green juices in the morning. You can use sprout juices. A little note about breakfast. There's a lot of kids in North America who are having Nutella on their breads, frosted cake cereal, and orange juice for breakfast. That's about 40 grams of sugar. And that's about 9 teaspoons of sugar before kids go to school. They'll go to school, their elevated blood sugar is going to be up here, and then they crash, and their energy levels are just not going to be optimal. So we need to maybe look at what we're feeding our kids before we go to school as well. And so another thing that I use is probiotics, Terrazyme, nutrients, essential oils. There's a lot of information about probiotics and behavior with these kids. When my kids go to school, they're taking their oil sample bottles. They're taking roller bottles with them, because I want my kids to be empowered that when they're feeling sad at school, when they're feeling thoughts of anxiety, or when they're feeling lonely or lack of motivation or lack of energy or needing to calm, they can empower themselves. They have a tool in their toolbox that they can use. And I love that for these kids. Immediately after school, we're giving more essential oils. We're giving them another dose of their nutrients and omega-3s. And we are putting electronics away, investing into our kids with quality time. And then at bedtime, again, more essential oils. We're doing meditation with them. And we're putting in the oil of choice for them. So thank you. Thank you for showing up here today. Thank you for the understanding on your children that it's not their fault. Imagine if we understood that it's not your fault. It's not your friend's fault. It's not your loved one's fault. Imagine if we looked at our kids and thought, I hear you, I see you, and it's not your fault. We will judge each other less. We'll judge ourselves less. And we're going to judge our kids less. And in turn, I feel like wouldn't this world be a better place? So thank you so much.